Harold was grandpa, Inga was grandma, Helen was the youngest one in the family and she died very young from TB, and Ida was well, we always thought of her as our old maid aunt, but she married 3 times, so she wasn't really old maid, but she couldn't keep a husband.
Oh no.
That's not true. That's not true. Her last husband's name was Vince, and he was just a character, and the whole family fell in love with him, so he always came to all the reunions and stuff, even after Ida died. Yeah.
So this is your paternal.
My paternal grandparents, yes. So Grandma was 80, let's see, 57,
87.
87.
And Harold was, let's see, 32, 46, 78. Helen was only 21.
Mm-hmm. And I looked at some pictures of her funeral, and Mom's brother was one of the pallbearers in her funeral.
Oh.
They were close to the same age. So.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Here, go stand behind the...
Okay, here we are. It's May 28th, 2014. We are at the Mountain View Cemetery in Butte, Montana.
I almost fell off.
She almost fell off. So we are at the grave site of Malcolm and Kate Downs and their son Jack. So tell me who these folks are.
Okay, Malcolm Downs was my mother's father, so he's my grandfather. Malcolm and my grandmother, Daisy, were married when Malcolm was 19 and my grandmother was 16. And my mother, Floy, was born when my grandmother was 16. They were divorced about the time that Mom was born. And I saw very little of him as I was growing up. I knew very little about him. Mother knew very little about him. We would visit here in Butte, I think probably 3 times at the most. Kate was his second wife. Let me back up a minute. Malcolm or Mac and Daisy met when they were teenagers in Illinois and married, and then were divorced. And somehow or other Malcolm got to Butte, I think probably to work in the mines from what I can figure out. But he and Kate were married then, and they had Jack, who then died of typhoid fever when he was 15. And so they always lived in Butte. I'm sure it was because they neither one could bear to leave where Jack was buried.
So this is your
Biological grandfather.
maternal biological grandfather.
Yes. I never thought of him as my grandfather. He was always just Mac. The man I thought of as my grandfather was Daisy's 3rd husband, Charles Spriggs.
And they're buried in...
They're buried in Kalispell, Montana.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Here we are at the Conrad Cemetery in Kalispell, Montana. We are at the gravesite of our maternal great grandparents, Daisy and Charles Spriggs. And here they are.
I wonder what her middle name was that started with a V.
I don't know.
If we go with the flower theme, it might be Daisy Violet.
There's grandma, great grandma, And that's not our biological grandfather, but this is the person that my mom called Grandpa. So that's their grave sites. And here's a panorama of the cemetery up on the hill above Kalispell. Why do they always put cemeteries on the hill?
No, probably because the town starts down by the water somewhere.
Yeah.
Look at this guy was in
World War I.
World War
This is what?
This is your maternal.
This is my maternal grandmother and her third husband, who is the one I always thought of as my grandpa. And Daisy was born in 1889 and died in 1946.
Step back a little bit.
And Charles was born in 1875 and died in 1954. So he was, what, 85?
He was 79, and she was 57.
I have no idea what the rings are. Must have something to do with a lodge or something that they belong to.
When I get home, I'll be able to look them up.
Yeah.
.357th Avenue outside of Benson, Minnesota. We're heading to West Zion Church, which is the burial, that's probably the church up there on the right. It's the church of my it's the burial site of my great-great-grandfather, Knut Gilbertson. And I would venture to say that that is West Zion Church. Street. And all I can say is, I hope this is the right spot. I mean, this is West Zion. I just hope this is actually where he's buried. I think we have it to ourselves.
Looks like it's an active church.
Yes, it does. All right. Let me, We are at the West Zion Church Cemetery, north of, about 15 miles north of Benson, Minnesota. This is the grave of my great-great-grandfather, Knut Gilbertson. You can see a lot of Scandinavian names in this. There's his stone right there. There's the stone of his second wife, not my great-grandmother. She died in North. That's his second wife. So, again, my great-great-grandfather, Nate Gilbertson. Here's the overall of the cemetery. You can see it's out here. There's the church. Nice little church just sitting out here in the middle of the farmland out in western Minnesota. Wind's blowing pretty good.
In southern Illinois, near the town of Belleville, Illinois, which is about 30 miles south of St. Louis. We are looking for the Walnut Hill Cemetery, which is the burial location for my 2 times great-grandfather, John Downs. So that's what we're looking for.
I think that's probably it. Man, you were not kidding. This is huge.
Walnut Hill Cemetery.
So they actually have roads.
Yes, they do. Look at the size of this thing. Oh my goodness. Why don't you give me my phone?
Okay, we are in the Walnut Hill Cemetery in Belleville, Illinois, just south of, about 30 miles south of St. Louis, East St. Louis. This is supposedly where my 2-time great-grandfather, John Downs, is buried. John, I think, is the father of Malcolm Downs, who is the father of my grandmother, Floyd Downs. We're in the cemetery. It's a huge cemetery. There's probably 10,000 graves here. We stopped and looked, talked to a man who pointed, this is the old part of the cemetery over here. He says the cemetery where he's supposedly buried, I mean the section is this section. Unfortunately, Find a Grave does not show a gravestone marker, and the map does not correspond with where he's supposed to be located. So I checked every grave in that section. I did not find any John Downs. Probably 30% of them, right era, probably 30% of the grave markers are so old you can't read them. So he may be buried in there somewhere. We just can't tell. So supposedly he's buried in that section right there. And scanning around, you can see it's a huge cemetery. This is just a very small part of it. The vast majority of the cemetery is back over the top of that hill. It's probably 5 times this big. It's huge. So without an exact location or approximately, you could search for a week and never find what you're looking for. There's so many graves in here. So unfortunately, we've got record that he's buried here. We just don't know exactly where, but we think it's in that section right there somewhere.
We are in southern Illinois, just outside the little town of Elkville, Illinois, which is about 15 miles north of Carbondale. We are headed out to looking for the Elkville Cemetery, which is the burial location of my 2 times great-grandmother, Mary Lou Downs. So that's where we're headed right now.
So we'll be looking for Elkville Cemetery.
I would suspect that's probably it right there.
Yeah, I would suspect so.
All right, here is the cemetery, Elkville Cemetery.
Okay.
Oh my God, we gotta try and find it.
Okay, this is in Elkville Cemetery is Mary Lou Walters Downs, who is Floyd Downs Gilbertson's mother. So that actually is your great-grandmother.
Great-great-grandmother.
Oh, great-great. Oh, it's Daisy. You're right. It's Floyd's grandmother.
Wait, what's it say? Here we are in the Elkville Cemetery in Elkville, Illinois. We're in southern Illinois, about 15 miles north of Carbondale. This is the grave, the burial place of my 2 times great-grandmother. She's buried in that gravestone right, the low one right there. That's her grave, the block kind of grayish one there. So this is just an overview of the cemetery. Pretty good sized cemetery. As you can see, they're mowing right now. Just talked to that young man mowing, 11 years old. He's having a great time on this mower. I just talked to him, chatted with him. He's been mowing this cemetery since he's 5 years old. So, nice young man. They're scanning around. That's his mother right there. His dad owns the cemetery, so they take care of it. So, it's about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. Wind's blowing a little bit. They're expecting some rain this afternoon, so we wanted to get this in before the rain came. We're just kind of out here in the countryside. A little rural cemetery, not little, it's a pretty good sized cemetery. Several thousand graves here and back. So we'll walk down to it. This grave is, like I said, my 2 times great-grandmother. She is the grandmother of my grandmother, Floyd Marie Downs. Her husband, my 2 times great-grandfather, I don't think is buried here. I think he's buried in another cemetery about 50 miles away. We're going to go to there next. But, so, this is her cemetery, her Mary Lou Downs. Again, 2 times great-grandmother. I think this is Malcolm Downs' mother. So there's her grave. And buried right next to her is another Downs, James Williams Downs. I don't think he is in my direct line. I think he might be another son. So that's Mary Lou's gravestone.
We are in Meade County, Kentucky, in the little town of Buck Grove. It's about 30 miles west of Louisville. We're looking for the Buck Grove Baptist Church Cemetery. This is the burial location of my third great-grandfather, Asbury Downs.
Okay, so now that we have found the church, I will try to locate the cemetery. Is it?
It's got to be around here somewhere. It's got to be close. Because I don't see a cemetery. Oh, there is a cemetery next to
Oh, okay. Oh, it's a big one too.
Yeah, it said it's got like 1,000, 1,500.
So what's the plan, Stan? No, I really gotta be. That's okay. Don't worry about it. I was gonna say, what are you doing?
Buck Grove Cemetery. All right, here we are, Buck Grove Baptist Church Cemetery in Buck Grove, Kentucky, where it's a small rural community just about 30 miles west of Louisville. This is the cemetery of my third great-grandfather, Asbury Downs, who died in 1898. His grave is up on the hill. We're going to walk up to it. As you can see, it's a fairly big cemetery, probably 1,500 graves here. We had a picture of it so we could find it because we knew what it looked like. Interesting, there's also a whole bunch of other Downs is buried here. I'm sure they're all related. These three right in front of us. The middle one is a Downs. Well, actually, they're all Downses. All three of these are Downs. I have no idea how they're related, if they are. But those are all Downs. Zachariah Downs died in 1886, born in 1813. Might be a brother. And there's some more Downses we found. This Downs is, I'm thinking, this is my third great-grandfather. So, that would make Malcolm Downs, who is Floy, my grandmother, that would make her, Malcolm, her father, is this gentleman's grandson. Now I gotta be able to find him again. I don't know where I'm going. Oh, here it is over here. So, Asbury is the grandfather of Malcolm Downs, who is my great-grandfather. See, there's Asbury right there. I don't know if you can read it or not. Asbury Downs, February 1834 to 1895, excuse me. So that's my 3 times great-grandfather. This one right next to him is his son, Robert, born in 1863, died in 1885. He only lived to be 22 years old. He is not in the direct line, but he is Asbury's son. So that would be Malcolm's uncle. Then you see there's the church spanning around. Nice cemetery, well kept, big. Going around and back to the car. Here's the grave, quick. There's the church, nice church, big cemetery. You can see we're going around out here in the country, farm fields around. Like I said, we're out here in rural Kentucky, just west of Louisville. There's Chris over there. She's had a spider land on her, so she's traumatized. She's having a conniption all the way around. It's like I said, pretty good sized cemetery. We just happened to find it because I knew what shape I was looking for. And back around to the gravestone. Okay.
We are in the little town of Magnolia, Kentucky,
On the left, there's nothing
which
on the left
is
yet.
about 40 miles south of Louisville, Kentucky.
Wherever that car is.
We are looking for the Magnolia Presbyterian Church Cemetery. This is the burial location of my 3 times
Magnolia
great-grandparents,
Presbyterian Church.
Jedediah Franklin Walters
Right up here
and
around
Nancy
the bend.
Jane Walters.
Okay. Oh yeah, Buffalo. Oh, we got a big old graveyard up here. Can we make a left here, or?
Yeah, it looks like it's on the left side. There's a driveway right
Yes,
there.
I see that.
I don't know how big it is.
Do you have any pictures?
I don't know, I'll have to check once we get up here.
Okay. Well, this is nice. They have a place you can pull off.
I'm sure keep going because the old part's over there. I don't know where the
Okay,
old part
I was
is.
just.
Here we are at the Magnolia Presbyterian Church Cemetery in Magnolia, Kentucky. We're about 40 miles south of Louisville. We are at the gravesite of my 3rd great-grandparents, Jedediah Franklin Walters and Nancy Jane Pruitt Walters. As you can see, we're walking over towards it. Big cemetery, nicely maintained. You can see Chris standing over there by it. Whole bunch of Walters around here near where they're buried. So, nice little church, nice little cemetery just setting up on the hill. So, walking over to it. Hot and humid today. Seems like I'm always saying that wherever we're in the South. So, why?
I'm trying to use this to look.
Here we are.
This is somebody. This is not them. They're over there.
Oh,
Looking
got
at
the
it
wrong
to
one.
Make sure. This is Dora.
This is Nancy, wife of Walter. Same stone. And on the other side, it says WF, consort of Nancy Walters. Here we are at the Magnolia Presbyterian Church Cemetery, Magnolia, Kentucky. We're about 40 miles south of Louisville, Kentucky. This is the gravestone of my 3 times great-grandparents.
That's what you said. I don't.
3-time great-grandparents, Jedediah Franklin Walters, and his wife Nancy. What's her name?
Nancy. I lost it. I'm trying to look at her full information.
Nancy J. Walters. Both born in the both died in the early 1900s, like the 1900s.
I think it's
So,
very funny.
yeah. See, here's the cemetery. There's the church. Big cemetery. Scanning around. Lots of graves. Very well maintained. We're just in this little rural community of Magnolia, Kentucky. Going around. We find it interesting because her name is Nancy, wife of, and his name is WF, WJ, JF Walter, consort of Nancy J. We think it was probably because he died first, so she got to pick out the headstone. So there it is. Very southeastern corner of Indiana, driving out through the countryside, trying to find the grave of my 4th great-grandparents, John Rubel and Nancy Rubel. We think we know where it is. We're headed out there. A little area called Manchester Township in rural next road to the right, where that car just turned.
Got it. Got it.
We're going to angle off to the right to Weisberg.
See, this to me is a 45-degree angle road.
Well, that's what the other one was too.
I didn't see it. Oh, now it says road closed ahead. I don't know where it's closed. I'm assuming we're going to turn off again? Or
Yes. We're going to go up here about a half a mile. We're going to turn on Manchester Road. Not even a half a mile. probably just past that house. Or just before the house, I don't know.
Okay, yes,
Street.
this is Manchester.
Okay, turn right here.
Which it's supposed to kind of do a loop.
Yes,
This is the one
it does.
that. Okay.
It does.
Oh my God, this is not a road. This is a track.
Whatever.
Oh cow.
It's no different than the road we were on yesterday.
Yeah, I guess maybe after we turned off. You're right. Not as good. Well, that road was
Okay.
kind of a gravel. Okay.
We're going to do a little jog here. We've been on a lot of these roads, Chris.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Oh man, we're going down into the holler.
You sure we're out of Appalachia?
You're being recorded.
I don't care. I wasn't saying that to be rude. I just was curious.
Okay, the road's going to make a slight angle turn to the right. Okay. There should be a little road to the left. Maybe it's a driveway. Go on up the hill.
Okay.
The cemetery should be right up here on the left somewhere.
Okay.
I mean, literally right there. Okay, here we are at the Pratt Cemetery. We are out in rural Manchester Township in rural southeast Indiana. We are about 20 miles to 30 miles west of Cincinnati. This is the graveyard of my fourth great grandparents, John and Nancy Rubel. Both died in the 1840s. So take you out there and show you their graveyard. I mean their graves. So it's kind of overgrown, as you can see. The people that live here graciously let me come out and wander around on their property. They said they've lived here about 3 years. I am the third person that came to visit the graveyard. As you can see, there's probably 50 graves out here. They're kind of leaned up against trees. It's not very well taken care of. A lot of them broken down. You can see gravestones over there leaning against trees. Gravestones, there's a lot of them. You can see them here and here. They're all broken off. There's quite a bit more than you'd think. Sorry about the sun, but sun's just going down. Gravestone up against a tree. So we're walking over to their graveyard, or some more graves here. You can see leaning on the ground. Some there, some over there. They said there was a woman and her son that used to take care of the place, but they stopped doing it, so it's become really overgrown. You can see there's a stack of gravestones there, some up against the tree, one over against the tree over there. We swing around. This is the graves of John and Nancy. You can see them right there. That's where they're buried. And go back over and you can kind of see in relation to the house. That's where the area we just walked up through. So that is them. Very nice. Thank you. Here we are at the grave of my fourth grandparents, John and Nancy Rubel. This is their gravestones. It's a little hard to see. It's overgrown. They have a little country cemetery called Pratt Cemetery out in a little town area called Manchester, Indiana. It's about 20 or 30 miles west of Cincinnati. It's just out here in the middle of a guy's property. There's their gravestones. As you can see, it's pretty overgrown. People that own the property live in that house. Talk to them. Really nice folks. Just let me come out. In fact, you might be able to see him sitting on his porch right there. Yeah, that's him. Nice young man. But this is the property. As you can see, it just goes around. It's really overgrown. They told me that they've lived here 3 years and I'm the third person to come visit the graveyard. They used to have a woman and her son would take care of it, but they stopped, so it's gotten overgrown really quick. But you can see this is what it looks like. There's a good chance I'm going to get poison ivy from this too. So they're going around, and it's about 5:30, so the sun's just going down, so it's kind of hard to see. But back to their graves. Here we are at the graves of my fourth grandparents, John and Nancy Rubel. We are in a tiny little private cemetery in a rural Manchester, Indiana, which is just about 30 miles west of Cincinnati. Just sits out here. It's out in this little graveyard. The stones have been knocked over years ago. Laying on the ground, they were all overgrown. I had to do a little gardening to get down to where you could see them. There's the grave of John. You can see he died in 1841. There's the grave of Nancy. Nancy, wife of John Rubel, died in 1842. Looks like she might have been only like 18 years old when she died. But that's their gravestones. And I'm covered in these little stickers. Little burrs. I mean, I got thousands of them on me now. So there they are. Kentucky Road.
This is 31E, I think. Not sure.
I don't know. We're down in Kentucky, just south of Louisville. We're trying to go to the South Fork Baptist Church to find a relative.
This is the area where Lincoln was born.
Yeah, we just stopped at Lincoln's birthplace. Probably right about where that car just turned.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we've got the churches right here. They were turning into the church, I think. Let me turn?
Yeah.
Okay.
birch. And of course he's turning to me, so. Am I continuing?
Yep.
Okay. Just making sure that the churchyard is not the bare, whatever it's called.
I would suspect that was built.
The graveyard, yeah.
The graveyard should be right over here.
How do we manage to pick up the only other person that is probably coming down here?
Probably right there by those trees somewhere on the right.
Okay, hopefully it has a road to go in.
There it is.
Yep.
Southport Baptist Church Cemetery. We are at the South Fork Baptist Church Cemetery in, I can't remember, in a little town about 40 miles south of Louisville, Kentucky. My fifth great-grandparents, John Walters and his wife Susanna Ashcraft Walters, are buried here. The church is no longer here, but what we're going to is, there's a memorial right next to their grave sites. It says, South Fork Baptist Church was organized under a large oak tree on this exact spot in the year 1782. And you can see, that's where the church was. It's no longer here. The church is, there's still a church. It's about a mile away. And then these two graves over here, the low one with the flag, that's John's. Oops, sorry, I stepped in a hole. Here we are in the graves of my fifth great-grandparents. John Walters is the low stone here with the flag in front of us, and the bigger stone behind is his wife, Susanna Ashcraft Walters. They're right here in the cemetery together. They're obviously newer stones. They've been placed here since they died. Here's John's. What it says is, in honor of service in the War of 1812. So it sounds like he might have served in the War of 1812. And then behind is Susanna Ashcraft, wife of John Walters Sr. You can see her sun's going down, so it's kind of hard to see. We're looking right into the sun. But that's hers. So we're at the big cemetery. We're at the very back, the older graves. There's the rest of the cemetery. Goes up to the road we came in on up there. So there's no longer a church here. The main church is about a mile away down the road. But that's the cemetery. Here we are at Bain Cemetery in Oxon Hill, Maryland, just south of Washington, D.C. Supposedly it's the burial ground of my 6th great-grandparents, Ebsworth and Susanna Bain. I mean, everybody in this cemetery is pretty much named Bain, but all the stones are from about the 1800s. So we couldn't find a specific stone for him, but that's probably the right place. So you can see it's just in this nice little neighborhood just south of DC. Scanning around. There's the car. Let's walk up real quick. Here's the gate. And like I said, almost everybody in here is named Bain, B-A-Y-N-E. There is a monument right in the middle that's obviously quite a bit newer than that. Talks about some of the history of the Bains and stuff. But just a nice little cemetery. Going back, there's school down below. So that's the Bain Cemetery. Here we are in the Bain Cemetery in Oxon Hill, Maryland, just south of Washington, D.C. Little family plot. My 6th great-grandparents, Gilbertson and Susanna Bain. Again, there's no grave specifically for them, but everybody here is named Bain. This is pretty much a monument right in the middle that's been here. Obviously, everybody here is pretty much named Bain, so I think we're in the right spot. Just not. And there's a monument here that has some inscription about various people. So I was just going to show you a video of that. Lieutenant William Bain, who served the country during the Revolution in Captain Samuel Hawkins Bain's company. So again, just a real quick, it's a little right up in this neighborhood, houses on both sides. Say it's there's probably 20 or 30 graves, you can see up above a little school. Pretty cool place. just as we go past that right bend, the cemetery should be off to our right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that's it right there.
Is this a little road into the cemetery?
Oh, that's pull
Okay,
up there.
okay.
I mean, I think it goes there.
So this is a graveyard here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think we should just pull in there, but hey,
I think you're probably right, but I don't think it matters.
well, we don't know which side it's on anyway, does it?
Here we are at the grave of my 6th great grandfather, John Friend. Died in 1778. This is a little church set out on a country road. It's called the Cove Church or something like that. Very nice little cemetery. Probably 1,000 graves here. Very well manicured. The church is very well taken care of. Obviously still being used as both a church and a graveyard. There's a lot of people, you know, born in the 1900s, and so we're just walking through the graveyard out to the gravestone of my 6th great grandfather, John Friend. Chris found it. I was on the other side of the church looking, but she found him. As you can see, it's a very well taken care of little church. Oh, I'm over here walking out to it. So, I don't know if you can see it, but the little, right ahead of us, the little group of 5 stones with the flag next to it. His is the middle stone. I don't really know why they're all buried together, or the stones are together. They don't have the same names. They're all died about the same time. So I'm not quite sure what that's about. But his is the middle stone. That sign is from either the sons or the daughters of the American Revolution. So I don't know if they had something to do with the Revolutionary War or not, but there's the church, so you can see it's set out here. Very nice. Like I said, the stone is too old to read. There's not much left on it, but they do have a little plaque right at the base of the stone that says John Friend. So I'm pretty sure that's his. Very nice place. Really cool. Here we are at the grave of my 6th great grandfather on the downside, John Friend, which is an Americanization of his German name when he came over. He's buried in this cemetery. We think his wife is buried here too, but we don't know that. What's this church again? This is Woods Church, buried here, or Cove Church. You can see it's a nice cemetery. We're spanning around. It's just out here on a country road. It's literally on a dirt road out in the middle of the farms. It's a nice little church. Very well taken care of. The cemetery. It's really nice. As you can see as we scan around, there's just fields around it. We're going all the way around. That's the little dirt road we came up on. So going all the way around. just getting dark, so we're kind of losing the light. It's about 6:30, quarter to 7 in the evening. We're back. Here we are at the First Shiloh Baptist Church in Orange, New Jersey. It's where my ninth great grandfather is buried. The tombstone is right over there. You see it's right over in that area right there. Coming back. As you can probably hear, they're doing some street work nearby. They said we're right in the middle of Orange, New Jersey. Just spinning around. It's an old church. The graveyard's right in the grounds of the church. We're spinning around Orange, New Jersey. As you can see, that's Main Street right there on Orange, New Jersey. Actually, this road that we're standing on is Main Street, and they're doing some work. There's an old statue of a Revolutionary War dispatch rider right there. And then we come around all the way back to the front of the church. And you can see it's an old church that you might expect. Go up. Got a big tall steeple on it. It's the front of the church. Still an active church. So he was buried in the 1700s, born in the 1690s, so been around a long time. Here we are at the grave of one of my grandfathers, Reverend Daniel Taylor, born in 1691, died in 1747. We are in Orange, New Jersey, which is just east of Newark. As you can tell, they're working on the road nearby. So that's his grave. You can see, obviously I think it was placed here afterwards. It's way too new, but after he died, so there he is. Here's the graveyard. There's the church. It's a beautiful church. There's Chris. Graves are on both sides of the church. So, going around. It's at 420 Main Street in Orange, New Jersey. Like you said, it's a old graveyard. Some buildings in the back. We're back. Back to the grave. Here we are, the Packer Cemetery outside of Mystic, Connecticut. My 8th great grandfather, John Ashcraft, is buried here. Don't know if his wife's buried here or not, but nice little cemetery. John is buried back down kind of underneath those trees. It's a low little gravestone, but neat little cemetery. So buried down there. Go back again. So nice little cemetery. Old, a lot of old stones in here. Here we are in Packer Cemetery in Mystic, Connecticut, with our 8th great grandfather, John Ashcroft. There's his grave. It's hard to, so you know that guy. So here we are. I just wanted to give a nice little cemetery. A little hard to find them, because these are old gravestones. A lot of them are damaged and flaking off down underneath the trees. We were just able to find them. Going around. So, as you can tell, it's raining today, but old cemetery. And back to where we were. Here we are, Whiteman Cemetery, outside Groton, Connecticut. I have two sets of grandparents buried over here in this little cemetery. You say we're just out here on the countryside. My ninth great grandparents are buried right beside, you can't see it, it's just to the right of that square topped pillar right there. That's James Burroughs and his wife Anne, or I can't remember her name. And then the Burroughs, which is right in that one right there, or Culver, excuse me, you can read it. So that's my 10th great grandfather and grandmother. They were the parents of the wife of the other James, so they're buried here. But nice little cemetery. As you can tell, it's raining pretty good, so Larry's here with me. We're both soaking wet, but neat little cemetery. Glad we came. Just scanning back the other direction. So very cool. Very cool. Here we are at the Sandy Bank Burial Ground in Media, Pennsylvania. It's right outside Philadelphia. I have some grandmother and grandfather buried here. The Mallins, M-A-L-I-N. They are like my 9th or 10th grand, I'd have to check, but this is actually what they call this is a burial ground. It's a Quaker cemetery. For the Quakers, it's called a burial ground. So this is the burial ground for what they call the Providence Meeting House, which is the Quaker term for church. And this gentleman right here came and met us and gave us an explanation. Really friendly guy. And so we're up on a little hill above a road here. are at the Sandy Bank Burial Ground in Media, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. I have a great 10 times great grandparents buried here somewhere. They don't know exactly where. They've confirmed that she's buried here, not him, but the stones are so old that they can't really say which one. This is actually a Quaker cemetery, which they call burial grounds. So cemetery. Here's the cemetery. Richard Smith, Bull Smith, going around. You can see it's just a nice cemetery up on the top of this little hill. Beautiful homes up here. Can't see it. We came up through the home of the guy that lives right there. Really nice guy. I talked to him. He let us walk up his. So yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous up here. Just kind of sitting up on top of this little hill. Took a little bit to find it, but it's neat up here. Going all the way around back to the cemetery. There we go. Here's a cemetery. Richard Bull Smith. We're out on Long Island near Smithtown. It's an old cemetery. Up on top of this little hill, we're walking up to it. So, got about 20 or 30 graves in it. The only one relative is Bull Smith, Richard Bull Smith. That's his plot right there. That's where he's buried. In memory of Richard Smith, patentee of the town of Smithtown. Died May 17th, 1692. And it's probably not his original because it was placed here by the descendants. That's his. Here we are in the cemetery of grave of Richard Bull Smith, founder of Smithtown, Long Island. Small little family cemetery up here behind these beautiful homes. As you can see, it's just a small cemetery sitting up on top of this hill. A lot of old, probably 25 or 30 graves here. Couldn't find this grave for Charles's, or whatever his name is, his wife. So I don't know if she was buried here or not, but he's my 10th great grandfather through my mom. So we are in Smithtown, New York. We are This is a commemorate I think it's my 9th great grandfather, Richard Smith, who founded this town. As you can see, back in 1665. We're on Long Island. We're in Smithtown, Long Island. So this is the, it's not his grave, this is the commemoration here in front of the town where he founded the town. You can see we're out on Long Island. It's a pretty little town right near a busy intersection. You can see there's lots. This is the just the main intersection here in town. Just going around. Lots of cars going by. Like I said, this is not where he's buried. This is just a statue in his honor outside the town. And then we're back to the statue himself. So. Here we are at the grave of Edward Culver. He's my 10th great grandfather, and his wife Anne, who is obviously my 10th great grandmother, buried here in the Whiteman Cemetery outside of Groton, Connecticut. Again, we're just scanning around. There's Larry, who came with me. Neat little cemetery. Scanning around. The other family, the Burroughs family, buried down right beside that tall column with the square top. That's James Burroughs. His wife is the daughter of Edward and Anne Culver. So 2 generations here. This little cemetery has a whole bunch of Culvers and a whole bunch of Burroughs in it, so probably family cemetery. Going around all the way back. Old cemetery. Back to where we were.